Super. This is a public meeting as required by the Retail Business Holidays Act to afford any person an opportunity to make representation with respect to an application for an exemption to the Retail Business Holiday Act by Rail City Brewing Company located at 130 Edward Street in St. Thomas and Caps Off Brewing Company located at 168 Curtis Street, Unit C in St. Thomas. Do any of the members of council have a disclosure of interest concerning this proposal? Seeing none? What method of notice and when was notice given to the public for this meeting?
Your worship, notice was provided on the council agendas of March the 11th, the 18th, and April 2nd, 2024, and on the city website.
Great. I'll now ask the Deputy City Clerk to provide an overview of the proposed bylaws.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'm just going to provide just a brief overview of the request and what the content of the bylaws will look like. So just for a little bit of background, the request received at the February 12th, 2024 council meeting from Railway City and Caps Off, requesting to be open on Good Friday and Easter Sunday. Should council support the request, exempting bylaws under the Retail Business Holidays Act are required. Council has previously supported exemptions to both breweries, Railway City in 2014 and Caps Off in 2019, to be open New Year's Day, Family Day, Victoria Day, Canada Day, Labor Day, and Thanksgiving Day. So just a brief little bit from the Retail Holidays Act. In the legislation, council shall take into account the principle that holidays should be maintained as common pause days, and the business must also be in compliance with the tourism criteria set out in the regulations. The regulation identifies the following as a tourist attraction: natural attractions or outdoor recreational attractions, historical attractions, and cultural, multicultural, or educational attractions. For municipalities under 50,000, the tourist attraction can be located anywhere in the municipality and does not have to be in close proximity to the business requesting an exemption. So the draft bylaws will contain a number of enabling clauses from the legislation and will note that this public meeting was held and that notice of the public meeting was provided. They will also note that council has taken into account that holidays should be common pause days, that council has considered any representations tonight, and that the proposed bylaw will comply with the tourism criteria. So finally, the enacting clauses for the two bylaws that are proposed, the Railway City Brewing Company will note that the retail business establishment known as the Railway City Brewing Company and the associated retail store located at 130 Edward Street, St. Thomas, shall be permitted to be open on Good Friday and Easter Sunday from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. Timing is consistent with the other two bylaws that are already in place. And the Caps Off Brewing Company, very similar, that the retail business establishment known as the Caps Off Brewing Company and the associated retail store located at 168 Curtis Street, Unit C, shall be permitted to be open on Good Friday and Easter Sunday from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. Both bylaws are subject to an appeal period and come into force and effect on the 31st day after enactment. I can answer any questions that council might have.
Thank you for that. Madam Clerk, have we received any written submissions on the proposed application for an exemption?
Your worship, there were no written submissions.
Okay. Do council members have any questions? Councillor Peters, I see your hand.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I have not been able to log on via video, but that's okay. A couple questions. So let's use Caps Off as an example. By next Easter, they are no longer going to be located on Curtis Street. They'll likely be in a new location. Does that mean we have to come back and amend the bylaw to, because they, if their construction schedule goes along, they'll be now on at 36 St. Catherine Street? So that's my first question. My second one would be, if a new business were to open, whether it's a new brewery, a distillery, a cidery, do we have to go through this whole public meeting process again? Or is there a way that we as council, under this legislation, have the ability to just make a bylaw amendment to say XYZ apple cidery now qualifies for all these exemptions. So those are my two questions. Thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask, John, does it have to be that way? Or I was just asked the same question before when Railway City Brewing first asked for their license, if they had included Good Friday and Easter in it, would it have automatically been that way? Or are these 2 days somehow different?
Thanks, Your Worship. To answer a couple questions there. So the bylaws do specifically state the holidays that council has allowed them to be open for. So this second bylaw is needed for the new request. Under the legislation, any sort of new request from a business or for new days would be treated the same way. A meeting is needed and the process would be the same. In terms of an exemption, if they move, it wouldn't necessarily need to go through the whole process again. We would probably just do a report and just tweak that bylaw a little bit.
But I'll go back to the other question. If it's a new request, it's a new business, can they ask for these two right from the beginning? I mean, I know both of these breweries have been operating for a while, so then it would just be included in their new license rather than getting all the other days and then having to come back and do a change like this?
That's correct. Yeah. So it would be, if council supports it tonight, a new business could ask for those same days. Something council may want to consider, especially as we kind of head towards the 50,000 population. Some municipalities have exempted the entire municipality as a tourism exemption. And if we do hit that 50,000 mark, the legislation speaks to the businesses have to be within a 2-kilometer radius of the tourist site.
Okay.
So just some considerations for future.
The businesses already with exemptions are grandfathered, or?
Yes, it would be if council decides to move in a different direction and exempt, the whole municipality, for example, that would take effect at that time.
Okay. Councillor Herbert, I see your hand.
Yes, thank you, Worship. And I'm not sure of the rules and regulations, but if we allow them to open up at 9 till 10 or 11 at night, could I go in at 10 after 9 in the morning and buy a beer, or do I have to wait till noon or something like noon? Let's say, do I have to wait till noon? Are there rules to say you can't sell beer till after noon, or am I out of touch with what is actually is going to happen when we allow them to open at 9? Just a question. I support it, but just a question.
To Councillor Herbert, this is just related to the retail sales of beer from the brewery. It's not anything to do with consumption. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Peters, is your hand back up?
Yes, it is, Your Worship. Thank you. John, so as we project ahead to the 50,000 number, and that's going to happen sooner than later.
Right.
The tourism exemption for the whole municipality, does that change a whole bunch of other business? Like, I watched on Facebook people frantically searching for food to go to a grocery store on Good Friday or Easter Sunday. Does this tourism exemption open up a whole bunch of other businesses that potentially are going to open on these holidays?
Good.
Yes, we need to do a little bit of research on that, but it theoretically it could open it to other types of businesses. Some municipalities that have these exemptions in place, it allows for certain types of other businesses to be open as well, and it would depend on what's in the bylaw, what council's comfortable with, that kind of thing.
Okay. So we may want to have that discussion too, John, separate from this public meeting. What else should St. Thomas be looking at as it crosses the 50,000 yard line? All right. Further questions from council? Seeing none, I will open the meeting to questions from the public. For those in attendance who have not already submitted any concerns or comments to the city, if you're listening on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, click the raised hand icon. We'll see that you have. And if you've called into the meeting using a telephone, dial *9. The questions will be taken in that order and will be given the opportunity to speak. Please provide your name. If you're given the opportunity to speak, please provide your name and address for the clerk's record. Any questions from the public or any further questions from council? So I'm looking for questions from the public or any questions from council. And one last time, I'll ask if there's any questions from council or from the public. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We'll consider that there are no further questions from the public or from council. We'll consider we will consider exemption bylaws relating to this matter at our next meeting. And should council pass the exemption bylaws, any person who objects to the bylaws may appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal by filing a notice of appeal with the tribunal, setting out the objection to the bylaw and the reason in support of the objection no later than 30 days after the bylaw has been passed. This meeting is now concluded.
Nice evening all. Thanks.
Thanks.